right. So I also like Fred Warner as an IDP, independent defensive player, which is very rare within fantasy football. But that leads me into the next topic. So while I have taken him in my fantasy drafts, what I want to know is much more in regards to some bets that are out there that I want to find out what you think about whether we should be betting on Defensive Player of the Year. Because as I look right now, Scoreboard Oregon, whatever our stupid website here is in this state that it forces you to gamble through the state lottery, has Fred Warner as plus 6,600. Now, I should not be gambling this level of money, and children, if you're listening, you shouldn't be gambling either. Be responsible. But let me just say that if you bet, the math works out with a plus 6,600. If you bet $1,500, which for a year-long bet is crazy, but not like crazy. It's just crazy. Not crazy. 1,500 pays out 100 grand, Jack, 100 grand. And I could use 100 grand. I'm a car guy. I could buy another car. It would be spectacular. I don't think my wife would let me buy another car, but I could try to buy another car.
Well, 100 grand, she might let you buy another car if
she might, because she would get herself a very nice purse as well. Probably several nice purses as well. So that could work out. There's room enough to get each person in the family a car with 100 grand, potentially. So the question is that a pie in the sky dream, or is this defensive line stout enough and impressive enough that they could force offenses into negative scenarios that funnel up into the backers and allow Fred Warner to just go off this year? What are your thoughts?
I don't think it's completely out of the question. I think there's a really good chance of him being able to be in that conversation and maybe able to win it because, like you said, you have that great pass rush up front. Mm-hmm. They should be able to shut down the run and force teams to throw. They're going to be in man coverage quite a bit, the way that it looks, which is going to put him in coverage, give him coverage opportunities to make those interceptions. They're going to be using him on the blitz. So those are all the things that go into Defensive Player of the Year, right? It's not just the guy it's not really the guy who is the best player. A lot of times it's who has the best numbers, who has the most highlight reel things that catch everybody's attention so they get the votes.
Yeah. Middle linebacker is one that doesn't often get the votes.
Right. Because they're not getting the sacks, and the turnovers don't usually go to that position. They usually go to the DBs. But if he's in coverage and he's able to get some interceptions and pick up some sacks along the way, I think that goes a long way towards him being in that conversation and maybe being able to even take that award.
Oof, that would be big. Now, my only quandary with that is that I feel like in order to be set up in the way that we just described, where Fred Warner has the opportunity to really light it up and accrue those statistical categories that are needed in order to actually get the votes to win, my fear is that in getting there, that basically requires Nick Bosa to have the type of season that he had in 2019. That I feel like this defensive line isn't quite what we want it to be without that key cog. And then I start to wonder, well, if Bosa has that type of year, is he more likely to be the Defensive Player of the Year than Fred Warner? So if you saw two statistical, phenomenal statistical years from both candidates, one from Bosa and one from Warner, do you feel that the edge would go to Bosa in the voting in that scenario?
Well, the only thing there is I don't think that you're going to see Bosa put up really big numbers that necessarily going to win him that award, right?
Okay.
He had 9 sacks the year that he won the Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Right.
So if he goes out, something I think somewhere in maybe 10 to 11 range is kind of what I think we might be able to say would be an expected number for him this year, which that's not going to get him the Defensive Player of the Year award. And I don't think that would take enough of enough off of what Warner is able to accomplish. Because okay. I think what you're going to get is this pass rush is going to be so good that the sacks are going to get diluted across the board. So you're not going to have one guy registering 18 or 19. It's going to be a bunch of guys around 8, 9, 10, 11.
Yeah, because this front is just ridiculous all the way across, and they play as a unit in that way. I think that's a good insight, that there'll be a bit more balance there with the numbers along the defensive line. And as these guys come in waves, it will allow a lot of the backups to accrue some of those sacks. Okay, I like that. So it sounds like you're on board at plus 6,600 with this completely irresponsible bet on Fred Warner as Defensive Player of the Year. Is there any validity to Bosa's going off at plus 1,600, so a $100 bet on him would net back 1,600 profit and your original $100. So basically, I could make the bet of 1,500 for Fred, 100 for Nick, and then if either guy wins, I'm covered. Is it worth covering my bases with Bosa, or do you think that it's a very slim chance he comes out of this thing with Defensive Player of the Year, considering he could be eligible for Comeback Player of the Year if they wanted to vote him in that way?
The problem with that is I think that if you got into that situation, they're taking votes away from each other.
Yeah.
Right. So I think you have to pick one or the other. I think you're going one direction or the other. You're going either with Warner doing it or with Bosa doing it.
I think you just saved me $100, Jack, and won me $100,000. So, I mean, for sure, I'm flying you out to a game if that happens.
Well, either that, or you can just help me get a camera like the one that you have, where I actually look decent.
We will get you set up with this bokeh in the background, everything that's going on in this, because you can do a lot with that, my friend. That would be fantastic.